Hi, it's Brandon Smitley from thirstgym.com. Today we're going to talk about how to back squat. So the back squat is definitely one of my favorite exercises of all time. I've broken the world record twice at 132 pounds raw in the back squat, and it's definitely one of my favorite exercises. I'm obviously very good at it as well, and I'm very picky on the way that you perform a back squat. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how I set up for the back squat and how I perform it, and some coaching cues that you might want to look for, and we're going to talk about bar position and a little bit of stuff like that as well. So I've got my Texas squat bar here in the monolift. Monolift part is optional. Texas squat bar part is optional. This is just what I prefer to squat with whenever I competed. So we're going to talk about a little bit of all the setup. So your hand position is the first thing, and I tend to put my hands where I'm going to have them the whole time. So in terms of, we can have our pinky under and our thumb under, we can have just our pinky around, our thumb around, we can go with like a false grip over. Find what works best for you. There's no specific way that's the best. I've basically done it all in competing. I've had it all three ways, and I've had success with all three ways. I would say for most people, if you are a competitive power lifter, put your pinky and your thumb underneath the bar while you're doing warm-ups to keep your elbows and your wrists and your shoulders happier. Then if you actually want to compete and you want to get your full hand around it, it's a very simple transition with your heavier weight, but it's going to let your shoulders feel better over the long run. So that's the first thing. I know where I put my hands. When you go to get underneath the bar, we're going to make a good quality shelf. Okay, so I prefer a low bar position. Some people prefer high. High is usually up here on top of the traps. Low bar is more on the delts. That's up to you. Then also make sure that you're setting of when you pick the weight. So one of the things I'm really picky on is how you pick the weight. So when we go to stand up, we don't want to this thing, okay? We want to make sure we wedge ourselves underneath, get our feet where we want them, wedge under, create tension, squeeze the bar with our fingers, hands, whatever position you got these in, whatever you want to do. Squeeze the bar, take your elbows, pull them in towards your side so you create a good shelf. Your lats are good and strong. As you pick up, good and slow. Okay? Then from a walkout perspective, if you're not going to be in a monolift, then we're going to take basically two steps. 1, 2, and then we're going to wiggle our feet into position. Okay? That lets us be way more stable when we walk the weight out, so they're not taking 20 steps backwards, okay? If you're gonna walk the weight out, a lot of times you are gonna set yourself up for a PR based upon the walkout alone. If the rack is too low or too high, that will screw you, as well as taking too many steps and stumbling around with max weights. So really be diligent on your walkouts. If you can get it down to the 2-step wiggle is what I call it, step, wiggle, I promise you your walkout will be way more secure, and you're probably gonna be more likely to hit a PR on the platform if that's what you're trying to do. So again, underneath the bar, get my feet set, create tension. Okay, we're gonna take a breath here, pull my elbows in. That's gonna let me solidify the weight. Let the weight settle when you pick it, okay? You don't wanna pick it and just start going. Okay, pick the weight, let it settle. Take your step, wiggle your feet to where you want them, wider or narrower, that's up to you. Then we're gonna rebreathe, create pressure, solidify. As we go down, we're going to feel the sides of our shoes. We want to make sure we're relatively heel, big toe heavy, so you should be able to feel heel, big toe, pinky toe. That's going to help solidify you. Then you're going to break with your hips and your knees simultaneously. You're going to go down till you hit 90 degrees. Drive your chest back up into the bar, okay? So we're going to go down, here, hit 90 degrees, boom. Squeeze the bar, rebreathe if you need to, down, boom. Okay, keep your head kind of pulled back. We don't want to be too far forward. Okay, keep it back. Chest is still tall. Torso angle is going to stay about the same the whole time. Okay, we don't want to try to lean too far forward, and we don't want to be like this. Okay, small forward lean, break with the hips and the knees at the same time. Drive back up, then forward. So the big thing on the squat, honestly, is the setup. The setup is going to probably make or break your squat 90+% of the time. If you've got a shitty setup and you don't walk the weight out well, your grip's not good, your elbow position's out of whack, you're probably going to be setting yourself up for failure before you even start the rep. So the big issues I see, one, we talked about the walkout, the setup and the pick. We've also talked about that too in terms of just popping that bar up out of the rack. We don't want to do that. Slowly apply pressure. Both times I hit my world records, that is without a doubt the number one thing that let me hit the weights that I hit was how I picked the weight. I basically forklift myself underneath the bar, slowly apply pressure, and then when I'm ready to take the weight, I breathe in, continue to apply the rest of the pressure that's able to let the bar clear the hooks or the rack or whatever it is I'm doing. So from here, I start with my hips out. This isn't a great place to be, but as I bring my pelvis under, I get my rib cage and my pelvis stacked as I'm breathing and create a tremendous amount of pressure up into the bar, okay? It's not about taking a big breath because you don't want to pick the weight up without good air in your belly, abdomen, lungs. People are going to argue that you can't breathe in your belly. Well, no shit. But from a coaching perspective, when you breathe in, you want to feel the belt. So when I'm breathing in, my hips start back here, I breathe in, and as I breathe in, I bring everything together so I've got a good stack and I can maximize that breath before the weight's on my back. Because if I've got 400, 500, 600, 700 pounds on my back, I can't fully inflate, okay? There's too much pressure pushing down to where I can't take a big enough breath. So I think that first breath before you unrack is massive. Even if you're gonna rebreathe, you wanna be able to try to get a good quality breath during your walkout. So after you've gotten all that, here, you're gonna twist the floor, get your hips underneath you, and you're good to go. Okay, if you choose to walk out, whatever, that's up to you, but at least you're in a good position and you're gonna let the weight settle here, okay? So by doing that, the weight becomes motionless and then you can own it and take it where you want it to be. The way Dave Tate taught me this was that you have to become one with the bar. The bar has to be accepted into your body before you can begin to squat, walk it out, whatever it is. That's raw, geared, wraps, doesn't matter. You've got to let the bar settle into you before you begin anything with the actual repetition. After that, once you've got that down, the step, wiggle, wiggle will get you your walkout. You rinse and repeat. Breathe, go, okay? I think if you're only gonna do one rep, and I think if you're a guy that walks your weights out, I think if you can get your breath, walk it out, own it, go on one breath without having to take two, I think you'll be not only tighter in terms of the repetition, but I think you're gonna be able to have more stability and ownership of the weight. Yes, you're gonna feel tremendous more pressure. Yes, you have a potential of possibly blacking out after you rack the weight. But I think if you're talking about one rep max and you only got one rep, I think trying to re-breathe in air and reset, I think you're going to lose just a little bit on performance side. Every time I've ever had max weights, I've taken one rep, and I've always done well with one breath on that one rep. So I think that covers a lot about the back squat. I'm really passionate about this exercise. I think it's the one thing that from a technical perspective that I definitely feel like I'm one of the best at in terms of picking weak points and being able to help people with their squats. Like again, if you break the hips, push your knees out at the same time, hit 90 degrees. When you go to come up, as long as you're leading with your traps up into the barbell and you're not thinking about elbows forward or thinking about pushing, you need to think about push and chest staying tall, traps back into the bar. I think that part takes care of itself. I really, really do. I think the setup and the descent and being understanding of how your foot pressure is, once you've walked the weight out and gotten set up, I think you're good there. So that's the back squat. Obviously, from a programming perspective, because I always talk about programming with my exercises, you've got everything with this. It's a big exercise. You can speed squat with it for doubles and triples and fives. You can one rep max. You can do sets of 3. I think if you're going to be in the sports performance realm, I think you're teaching kids how to squat 3 to 5 for strength. If you're trying to really teach them the exercise, 6 to 8 with lighter loads. Honestly, probably even a box squat. I've got a box squat video. Teaching kids how to squat properly. I think the more repetitions, the better with sub-max loads. And then once they become confident, then you see it takes more of your 3s to 5s to build strength. I'm not big into one rep maxing youth athletes or honestly any athlete. I think it's a waste of time. But If you're a power lifter or strongman bodybuilder, that's ideally how you're going to walk out to maximize your back squat. So if you got any questions about the back squat, please feel free to leave in the comment section. I'd be more than happy to help you dialing your back squat and be able to give you, hopefully, a new PR. So if you got any questions, leave in the comment section. Thanks. Have a great day.